Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we will create a new level and also create an enemy which will patrol the area. So in the previous tutorial, we had left off over here where the player would collect the coins, and once he collects all the coins, the goal will appear, and when the goal appears, we will see in the console that you win. And also when the player falls off, he will come back to the same position. Now, what I would like to do is go in the scenes folder, click on main and control D or command D. So you'll see another scene has been created and it would be named as main 1, and double click on it, and if you want to make sure that you're in the new scene, then check over here, it's called as main 1, and when you click on main, it would be main over here in the hierarchy tab. So you can verify yourself that it's the new scene or not. Now firstly what I would like to do is click on the ground, and now as it's a new level, in the Z, scale it up to 50. So we will have a longer ground, so the player will have to do a lot of moving to go towards the goal. And we will put the player at one end of the scene. So I will click on player and I will move it to this end. Let me go near it. So yeah, it's almost touching the ground. And even the collectibles, we will position them and just scatter them wherever we want. So one will be over here, the other would be here, third one would be somewhere around here, and the fourth one would be just in between. So it's like kind of zigzag, and the goal would be at the opposite end of the player, and this is how our level would be. Now we will create an enemy. It would be a cube, so create a cube and let's rename it as enemy. We will create a tag and go to untagged, add tag, and click on this plus sign, and we will name it as enemy. Click on the enemy game object, and the tag we will tag it as enemy. Now I would like to give its own material, so go in the materials folder, click on create in the project tab, and we will create a material and let's call it enemy. Now our enemy would be red in color, so drag it to the corner as it's already red in by default, so we'll just drag it to the corner, or it is 255 on red, 00 on the green and blue. Then click on the enemy game object and we drag the material onto the enemy, so we get a reddish kind of enemy. Now we will position it. I will click on enemy, and on the y-axis it would be 0.558. So just it's literally touching the ground. So this is how our enemy would be positioned. Now these were the things which we were already doing in the previous tutorials as well. Now we'll see something new. Click on enemy and right click on it. Click on create empty. Now you would see that an arrow has been created and there will be a game object which has only transform property. We will name it as start enemy pause, meaning start enemy position, and what this means is that the start enemy position game object is the child of the enemy game object. So if I move the enemy game object, this will also move. So let me just put a tag on it. Let me just show you how it looks. Now If you want to see now, as it is an empty game object, you won't be able to see anything. So what we'll do is click on this cube and we'll select one of the icons. Let's take this blue one. So you will see that it would be a representation of the game object, and when you click on enemy, you can see that this object is also moving because it is the child of the enemy game object, so it would move along with it. We can also move it independently, so if I click on the child, and I can move it separately as well. But the purpose of doing it is because I want, so I will just put it back to 0. The purpose of doing this is because I want to put this position right in the center of the enemy. I want it to be in the x-axis of the enemy. So I will position it in such a way that it would be at one end of the horizontal ground or the width of the ground. So now we'll drag this out, this start enemy position, we'll drag it out, and you'll get to know why I'm doing it. So I will put this over here. Okay, so it would be at 9, and the other one would be at -9. Now the enemy would be going to this position first. So what the enemy will do is it will keep on moving like this. So it would be continuously moving like this, and it would patrol this part of the area. So it will literally guard it. So when the player collides with the enemy, then the player has to respawn and one of his lives would be gone. So this is what the enemy will do. So let me zero it out again. And this start enemy pause would be at -9, not 9. And this, I would like to rename it as end enemy pause, because this is the starting position and this is the end position. And we will put it as 9 on the x-axis. So it will be at the opposite ends. Now what I'll do is we'll create another script. So click on the scripts folder, click on create C# script, and we will name it as enemy, and I will open it. And in this script we will write that patrolling code which we require for this game. So I'll click on OK. I'll remove these comments and I will position the curly braces as well, and the variables which we'll use is public end speed. I'll zoom in first. Yeah. So public end speed, then I will use public transform start pause, public transform end pause, and I'll use a private transform current pause. So what these means is the speed is the speed of the enemy, how fast it will move. Start pause is the start enemy position, so we will store it in the enemy, and the end pause is the end position of the enemy. The current pause will tell us which position the enemy has already been to right now. So in the beginning, so it's kind of like the current position, or it is like, for in this case it would be the position which the enemy has already been to. This is the start and this is the end position. In the start function, I will write an if statement, and it's just a normal check which will happen, that is, if this current pause is empty. Now here if you click on enemy, we'll drag the script onto the enemy. Let me save it. So you will see the variables. Normally it is already set to none. Yeah, so I will check that the current pause is also null or none. So null means that it is not having any game object, or it has no reference to any game object. So we'll put this start enemy pause in start pause, end enemy pause in the end pause, and I will put the speed as 35. Let me save scene and save project. So what I'll check is the current pause is empty or not, like the one which we had before for these, because I can't see this current pause. I don't require it to be public. I just want it to be private so that, you know, I don't require any more fields for it. So if it is empty, then I would put it as, oops, should be start pause. So it will take up this transform, the start pause, in the beginning. So when the game begins, it would take this start enemy pause, and then later on we will change it again and again so that the enemy will have a new destination to go to. In the update function, we will write if current pause is equal to start pause. Okay, so if now we have already set it to start pause. Now we'll check if it is start pause. Now look at this equal sign and this double equal to sign. The difference between the two is the current pause will be assigned a value if I use a single equal to sign, but the current pause, if it is a double equal to sign, it will be compared between the other value. So here the current pause would be compared with the start pause, and if they are equal, then we'll do transform dot position is equal to vector 3 dot, just write with me, I will explain you how it works. Move towards, in brackets I will write transform dot position comma end pause dot position comma speed into time dot delta time. So what this does is the transform or the position of the enemy will move towards. Now how this works is, I will just show vector 3. Now if you are in a confusion that what variables should I put, so once you have written vector 3, you can click on the full stop or the dot, and you'll get to see many functions or properties which you can use. But we are using move towards, and once you write move towards, just click on the open bracket. Now it will give you various values which are required to make this function work. So vector 3 current, and it tells that moves a point current in a straight line towards a target point. So current means the current position of the game object, and that is transform.position. So if I write transform.position, the target is the target position. So we are targeting the end position. We start off from the start position and then we target the end position, and moves the current in a straight line towards a target point. Then speed into time dot delta time means how fast it will move, and also it will check how smooth it would be. So I'm using time dot delta time to smooth it out. So the position of the enemy would change every single time, and it will check whether it is still start pause or not. Else if it is current pause end pause, so here we had current pause is equal to start pause, here we'll check current pause is equal to end pause. So it's just the opposite. So what we can do is we can copy this and we'll paste it over here, and we'll just make a single change. Here we had end pause, so we are starting from the end position and we need to go back to the start position. So here it's our end, so we'll go to the start position. To go to start position, we will just make this small change. Here the end pause would become start pause. That's it. So if we click on play, you will see the enemy moves towards the end pause, but it's not returning back. The reason is we are not changing the current pause. We are just keeping it at as start pause. We need to change it at end pause as well. For that, what we do is we'll put another if statement, and in this we will write transform.position.x is less than equal to minus 8.5f, and transform.position.x is greater than equal to minus 9.5f. So what this means is, I'll put the curly braces. So when the enemy's x value is between minus 8.5 and minus 9.5, and this f is important because it tells that this is a float value, and a float value is a value which has a decimal point, so it will tell the computer that it is a float value. So if it is between minus 8.5 and minus 9.5, we will write a code, and in that we will write current pause is equal to end pause. I'll just make sure that I'm correct. No, I think it should be start pause. We will check it later. And in else if, it's going to be similar statement, because both the position, the start and the end positions are at 9 and minus 9. So we'll just remove this minus and we'll change the greater than equal to sign to less than equal to. We remove this minus as well and we'll put the greater than equal to. So this will tell us that if the enemy is between 8.5 and 9.5, and if it is, then current pause is equal to start pause. Let me just check whether it is right or not. I think it should be. I click on play. So if it moves back, then I'm correct, or else no. So we need to change this. So once I click on play, I think it should work. Yeah. So you can see the enemy will move from the start position and the end position, and then it will move back and it will continue to move. So what this update function is doing is, it will first check that the current position is equal to the start position. If it is, then it will move towards the end position. Else if the current position is equal to end position, so the current position which we have the variable, the transform component, if it is equal to the end position, then it will move towards the start position. So it will move from end to start in a straight line. Now the other if statement is, if the transform, so the transform component, the position and the x, so we are referring to this, if it is less than minus 8.5 and greater than equal to minus 9.5, then the current pause will change to start pause. So the variable which becomes start pause, it will become end pause first, and then it will again change to start pause, because the player is first moving towards the end pause. So it will move till about 8.5 or 8.9, Then the current pause will turn to end pause, because it will check whether the x value of the player, of the enemy, is between 8.5 and 9.5. If it is, then it will turn to end pause, and when this does, it will move to this condition and it will start moving towards the start pause. So it will start moving over here. So once again, if it becomes between minus 8.5 and minus 9.5, it will come over here. It will check whether the condition is true or not. If it is, then it will become start pause, and then this statement, it will now move over here and it will go again to the end pause. So the enemy will continuously move from start pause to end pause. So this is how we will put a enemy which will just move continuously, and if the player hits it, the player will have to respawn. So in the previous videos we have done all this, the trigger, using the trigger. You can try it out yourself. I will do it in the next video, but instead of using on trigger enter, you just have to use on collision enter. So that's the only difference, because we have not put the is trigger for enemy, because we don't want to go through the enemy. And the other difference is this collider would become collision, and you can just see this code over here and you can try it out yourself what will happen. And I think that's it for now, and in the next video we will adjust this camera as well, because the camera is somewhere else and the player, and it's not focusing on the player. And as it is a long ground, we will make sure the camera would follow the player, and also it would just keep track of the player, and it will keep on looking at the player. And we will also check if the player collides with the enemy, it will return back to its original position. So please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Until then, bye.